This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, Erica, you're expecting Kelsey, you said, to come on?
She's logging in her office now.
Awesome. Okay, it's 7:05. This is Chairman Mike McCoo of the Town of Willington Board of Finance, calling to order the special budget meeting of Thursday, March 3rd, 2022. Call to order at 7:05 p.m. First order of business is seating of alternates. Christina is at a work meeting and she's asked that Lisa Wolf be seated in her place. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right. Hang on, let me get my. Okay. Stephanie,
Yes.
Pete Tanaka,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, motion passes. Next, present to speak, public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain decorum. Is there anyone on here tonight who would like to speak and present to speak? Feel free to turn on your camera or unmute and call out your name. All right, I'm seeing nobody on present to speak. Give me just a second. Kelsey's coming on and I just want to set up her co-hosting.
Mike,
Yes.
does it show her again? It may take her a minute. She and I were the last of the changeovers for today.
Okay.
And there's a lot of changes.
Okay.
So
All right. So we'll move to.
Grass with them, so.
Yep. She's on now. Okay.
Okay.
I think somewhere in here. Kelsey, are you able to hear me? Oh, she's still
No,
connected.
not yet. She's
Okay.
all frozen. She's telling
All
me.
right, so let's, we're gonna start with old business, previously tabled budget presentations. We do not have any of those right now. The only two budgets that we don't have numbers for is Board of Finance and Board of Finance contingency. We'll address those later. So, Kelsey, are you able to hear me now?
Yes,
Awesome, I made you co-host.
thank you.
All right, so we're moving on to old business item number 2, ARPA process. I'm going to do a screen share with, we have an update from the ARPA chairperson. Seem to have messy screens here. Okay. To move so I can read it. Okay, this is from Christina Milos, chairperson of the ARPA Commission. Dear Board of Finance Chairman McCoo, because I will not be able to attend the Board of Finance meeting, please accept this ARPA Commission update. The last ARPA meeting was on Monday, 2/28. Many things were discussed at the meeting. Trying to, I have screen again here. Okay. I apologize if I've missed mentioning anything of interest to the Board of Finance. Discussion items included, First Selectman Wyszynski has indicated that a detailed letter from the town attorney will be furnished to the ARPA Commission and Board of Finance, so the questions about how to word appropriation motions will be answered, and the ARPA Commission will be able to proceed accordingly. The ARPA funding submission form was finalized. It can be found at the link enclosed here. The link to the funding submission form was distributed to the department heads and budget writers. A process for evaluating funding requests is taking shape. The commission is hoping to get a sense of what all of the submissions are before making decisions, and a desire to hear from and possibly act upon submissions that will help families and small businesses first, as well as urgent items. The CIP committee made a request to the ARPA Commission to fund 5 projects so that these projects would not need to be funded by other means. Those projects will likely be heard at the next meeting, which is March 7th. And no formal action would happen until at least the next meeting on March 21st. There is a need for the decision to be made in the short term, as this could affect the operating budget currently under review if other funding means need to be found. There is only one request that was heard at the 2/28 meeting and could be acted upon as soon as the next meeting. It is for the second ambulance for Wellington Fire Department number 1. That request is for $100,000 and the request form is attached. Information will be sent out to the public via a public notice about all of this, so the residents and taxpayers are aware of what is being discussed and decided. There will be an opportunity for public input, and it is encouraged, and also to apply for project funding if they represent a qualified entity. Board of Finance members and the general public might be interested to know that all funding request submissions can be viewed by anyone at any time and will include updates as they move along the funding review process. The way to go see them is to go to the link here, click on search at the top of the page, type in ARPA, and a list of projects will appear. They are listed by their project number, which is not descriptive, but our agendas will include the project number and a short descriptor. As an example, you can click on ARPA 3, which is the ambulance request, and have the ability to see all of the details and click download attachments such as supporting documentation, quotes, etc. Here is a link to the ARPA Commission meeting on Monday where all of this is discussed. That's a link for the YouTube video. Please let me know if you have any questions about this. Thank you. Respectfully submitted, Christina Milos, ARPA Commission Chair and Board of Finance Representative. Okay, so board members, any questions, thoughts, discussion on this? Maybe we could start with Erica and see if you've heard back from the town attorney yet.
No, I have not. No,
Okay.
but I do anticipate the document that will come from him should end the conversation that has been happening here as to whether or not the process can go forward, as we
Great.
have an ordinance that was voted on at town meeting. And what he will do in that document as well will speak to Christina's question of how our motion should be written.
Excellent. Okay, other board members?
Okay, so what's the bottom line? Do we have any say in anything?
Well, I think if it's based on what Erica is saying, the town attorney is going to resolve the concerns. And once that is in fact in hand, then if it goes as was originally planned with the ordinance, then it will continue on with the process of the commission being the decision maker, and the Board of Finance will not be part of the decision-making process.
But Mike, I will say you certainly are represented on that. As residents, you're all encouraged to participate in the process. And like Christina outlined, if you, from the ARPA page on the town website or the front page where it's online permitting, if you do a search and you put in ARPA, you'll get all of the ARPA projects. Unfortunately, it gives you a generic ARPA name and number. The ARPA Commission will be putting together a document that is more verbose, so it will have a better description. But at any time, any person could go on that site and look to see what has been submitted.
Right. Yes, I agree. And I would encourage board members and anyone from the public to participate in any of these processes. In, whether it's in just keeping an eye on what's going on or doing present to speak or participation on commissions. This really is just a matter of cleaning up whether this particular board has any fiscal responsibility or not. It sounds like the town attorney will finalize that we do not have a fiscal responsibility for the ARPA program. I think our responsibility really is all the things we have always dealt with. And then I've heard some concerns about whether ARPA projects can lead to downstream funding. And that certainly is something we would get involved in, because if ARPA, for example, funded something that then had to be paid for by budget on year 2 or 3 or whatever, or perpetually, then that becomes an area that would fall into our process eventually, and would be an area even of concern for us right now if we can foresee that. But as far as the approval of how the money is spent, it would appear that we're going to have verification that the Board of Finance is not part of that approval process. We'll have that clarity.
I think it's also, oh, is that okay, Mike?
Go
I
ahead,
think
yeah.
It's also kind of good to urge, and I know they're doing that, but consideration of the CIP projects that are considered that fit that category that Mike just talked about, and that are high priority items that the town needs to do. But if it qualifies under ARPA, and some of those could be done, we have quite a lot of stress on the capital spending right now, and that would free up money for other pressing needs. So that's another element that, as far as guidance goes, but it doesn't have anything to do with the approval issue that you're talking about from
Right.
BOF's side.
Right. Other board members, comments or questions? Pete Tanaka?
Yeah, I know I'm coming late to the game with this question, and that I sincerely apologize. But in the town ordinances, don't we also have town meetings for spending over $10,000? And does that take effect here, or is that bypassed by this ordinance as well?
That the assumption is what we will learn when we get the final information from the town attorney, is that the ARPA Commission has the authority as was deemed by the vote of the taxpayers to approve the ordinance. So our process is out. The town meeting over 10,000 process is also not relevant if we get the information from the attorney.
Is it 10 or 20? I think it's 20, isn't it? For town meeting?
Well, there's some discussion about whether it's 10 or 20 based on the source and what type of transfer it is. So I believe there's a 10 threshold and a 20 threshold.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Are the Board of Finance members, anybody else on the Board of Finance with comments or thoughts? Do we want to share any more sort of concerns or guidance on this now while we've got it on our agenda?
I think it might be, a good thing to sort of do, a sort of a friendly kind of advice or guidance to ARPA with some of these ideas. And then, because obviously we don't have any oversight on it, and I don't think we should the way it's set up, but we do have budgeting expertise that a lot of the people on the commission haven't had. So I think that might be good to just let them know where we're coming from and some of the things that have been said in the past and tonight.
So would you envision, Stephanie, us giving some information to Christina as our representative to bring to that board, or sending an email to Christina as the chairperson? Or what did you envision?
I don't know. I guess I'm kind of thinking, motion would be in order.
Can I say that we've talked about this at ARPA, and I think we'll continue to talk about it, and it's part of the discussion, the questions that are asked when projects are being submitted, if they will have budget implications, how that would play out. For instance, I can tell you that from the Board of Selectmen and the Human Resources Department, we've presented a project that would phase in an increase in pay in a department. It's unusual and it's a direct result of COVID. And in this case, it's human services. But some of the other projects are one-time projects. That's really what's encouraged. One-time things so that you're not adding to your operating budgets moving forward. And the final rule even speaks to that. So that is something that we've talked about. I think we'll continue to talk about during these projects. It's in the forefront of our discussions. It's really important for us to not continue, to put in, if I added 3 new staff members, that is certainly something that would affect the budget moving forward. This isn't the money to do that. This is, funds ideally that will help as a result of COVID, but one-time expenditures are really what is encouraged.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad, and I hope that that's, kind of how people are seeing it, but I think it's fine to, kind of make a Board of Finance statement or, whatever, kind of offer the guidance on the budget end because, at least they have that to see as a reference, and there's nothing binding about whatever we would recommend. It's up to them to what, and the town attorney about how the statute is interpreted, or the ordinance is interpreted. But so I'd like to go ahead and move that we recommend respectfully to the ARPA Commission that it first decline to approve any projects or purchases that carry future ongoing costs on payroll, operating, or capital budgets. And second, that it not approve requests until, this is addressing what happened before, that it not approve requests until the legal issues for allocating funds are addressed by the town attorney and can be looked at or reviewed by the Board of Finance, not voted on, but just reviewed, just looked at. And 3, that it consider approving funds for qualifying CIP projects in order to free up capital money for other pressing needs. And like those might include the upgraded radios for both the fire departments, the air packs, the public works generator, and workout pavilion for River Road. Those are examples of the ones that would have made, that we hope will make the cut for the first year on CIP.
Stephanie, just to understand, where in that language did your motion stop? Did you want to include those examples that you just said in the motion?
You don't have to include the examples. I
Okay.
was just doing that to inform the listeners.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out
sorry.
where the motion, I just want to know where the
Yep.
motion stops so we can vote on, so we can second and then discuss.
Okay. Do you want me to repeat it?
You said the third item was consider CIP.
Consider approving funds for qualifying CIP projects in order to free up capital money for other pressing needs.
Okay,
Is that enough?
yes, can I get a second? Lisa seconded. Okay, so board discussion. Joe? Oh, okay, I thought I saw you waving your hand.
No, sorry.
Okay. Other board members, discussion on the motion.
Could I just clarify for folks? I mean, the reason that I thought to put it in a motion is because I know that the ARPA Commission is meeting Monday and that they're in full throttle mode. It sounds like from Christina's note and what Eric has said, that I just think it's good things to clarify, but not wait for, memos to be written and things like that.
Okay. Other board members, discussion on the motion. Kelsey, are you ready to call a vote?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Jeff,
Is that me? Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Okay, more discussion on the ARPA process? Let's move on to new business, budget presentations, Board of Selectmen. Erica, do you want to screen share or?
I do not, and I'll explain to you a little bit why I'm not
Okay.
going to. So you all have a copy of a budget. You actually received two from me. So the first budget you received was what was approved by the Board of Selectmen at our last regular meeting. The second update included current figures for fuel. I know you heard from the superintendent last week that late last Thursday, we were able to lock in to new fuel costs. And so we were able to get updated numbers. And I thought it was important to share those with you. So the second budget you got, the only changes made in that were highlighted in green. Can you see that, Peter?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure I was on the correct one.
Yes. So the
Yeah,
only
that's
changes
right.
that were made from what was approved by the Board of Selectmen were related to fuel. And so you'll see that over several different departments, whether it's diesel fuel or heating oil. So just for your information's sake, we had assumed a $2.50 cost, and that was up from $1. I apologize, I've got everything here, up from $1.63 heating oil and $1.64 for diesel fuel. That's what we had originally assumed. We ended up locking in at $2.94 for heating oil and $2.97 for diesel fuel. We thought we could ride this thing out and hold off locking in and get a better price. We knew we'd be up from the really great deal we had at $1.63 and $1.64. But with the things happening between Russia and Ukraine last week, Donna, the Superintendent Stevens, and myself met and decided we needed to find out what the daily rate was on Thursday and lock into it. And as you can see today, the numbers have been going up and up and up. So while it's not what we thought it would be, we thought it was best to do that. So as I outlined in my memo and then updated to you in my note, you can see that our new budget number, what we had originally approved was $4,066,632. Our new with these fuel figures would be $4,078,735, which is a $375,259 increase. We recognize that it's significant. And I will tell you that not one of the members of the Board of Selectmen made this decision easy. We made cuts, but we really struggled with the needs of the town and the rising cost of doing business. And one of the main reasons I'm not currently sharing on my screen, although you all have a budget in front of you, is we have yet to ratify the contract with the union. We are still waiting on language between parties. And because of that, what you see is a placeholder for pay increases that would include a potential increase in this current fiscal year and next year. So while you see a percentage, know that it's very unlikely that that is a one-year percentage. I want you to recognize that. But I trying to honor the negotiation process. I cannot say what those numbers would be currently. I was hoping this contract would be done at this point, Peter.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what line you're on here and
Salary. I'm talking about salaries. So the salary numbers as a whole, you'll see a percentage increase over salaries, and they are. It's not representative of an increase in 1 year. It may be a combination of 2 years, and what we're looking at in the contract once it's negotiated. So I know that sounds vague. I apologize. I am purposefully being slightly vague, wanting to honor the negotiation process and not say to you the percentages that have been negotiated because no contract has actually been ratified yet.
So Erica, I just want to point out, so I'm not, I was about to do the screen share. So
Yes.
the board can work with it. it creates a little bit of a situation because this is a public meeting.
It is.
We
And
need
and I will
review
say to
the
you, Mike,
budget.
and we're not required to screen share. If you choose to, that's fine. I don't want something as simple as that to harm the process that we have in place and negotiating a contract. Listen, I asked over a year ago to begin negotiating this contract with the union. I never thought at this point I'd still be here daily. I ask about getting the contract done, trying to work with the union to get it ratified through them so that the Board of Selectmen can. So if you choose to screen share, that's fine.
Pete,
Peter?
Yeah, I understand that we're talking about each individual line for salary. What did you use for a placeholder? Just out of curiosity.
Well, the numbers that you see on the screen are the placeholders we used. So
and now
What
every salary percentage may look a little bit different, but it's the majority of them are based off of what I hope to be finalized in a union contract.
Erica, also these numbers don't just represent necessarily a percentage pay increase. Some of the numbers mixed in with some of these numbers only is the potential of multiple years, but some places there are adjustments in hours as well, right?
That is correct.
But it's
that
not
is
like
correct.
anyone looking at this can see exactly what raise a particular person is
No.
going to.
The majority of them you will see around the same, but there are steps included for union staff. And then there are some salaries, which I've outlined separately, that have increases that may be above and beyond or separate from that increase.
And
So
Erica,
I
does
gave you
that
some, I'm sorry.
does that also include the 2 step-ups in this fiscal year for minimum wage? Do we have
don't have
any?
anyone at minimum wage
Okay.
currently? So.
Okay.
Okay, so I outlined some of the assumptions, salaries being one of them, the heating fuel another. We do have one placeholder for insurance. So if somebody during the course of the fiscal year needs insurance, that is in the insurance, in the larger insurance number. Our workers' compensation increase was capped at 3%. Our health insurance premiums for medical, we will see no increase this year. We were able to join a collaboration. They asked us to join them at a multi-year contract. Our numbers were so good that they were willing to take the 1 year that we were willing to sign with them. And we were able to bring you much earlier a 0% increase. Usually at this time we have a not to exceed number, and the number is finalized well after the budget process. We were able to complete that sooner. So there is no increase in premium for medical insurance in this budget, and the dental and life is assumed at a 5% not to exceed number. At some point, the town will need cyber security insurance. That is not factored into this budget. With the systems we had in place, we had not been successful in acquiring a policy currently. We couldn't even get them to quote us one. So we wouldn't even know what to tell you to put it in as a placeholder. Part of the project you've all been part of with your new email change and our domain change is part of making changes so that we can move in a direction of cybersecurity insurance. We share IT services with the schools, and that service it had a 3% increase this year. And I outlined some of the significant increases in this budget. In the selectmen's department, the assistant, the proposal is to go from part-time at 30 hours to full-time at 35 hours. There is much more work in this department than 30 hours will allow for. And that salary figure also includes 5 weeks of additional time needed. I anticipate that would come during budget season when there are multiple meetings needed. There is also a $3,500 increase in the CIP/SBC secretary, recording secretary line. That was funded this current year with savings in the department, and next year we have budgeted for it. There is an $835 increase in advertising. within this budget. That's based on a 5-year average. And so that covers our legal notices, any help wanted ads. We are still currently required to post all of our legal notices in a newspaper, although I can tell you many towns around the state, most are still advocating for that to be changed with the legislature. We move to the next department, which is accounting services. While there is a significant increase in this department at $60,461, the main drivers here is the addition of the assistant business manager that began this year in November. And you will, if you recall, the treasurer's position significantly declined in cost. And some of that was here with some additional costs. So you saw a decline in the treasurer's salary and an increase here. The operational increases in support programs, our software at 4.6% increase is another increase in that department. The assessor is the next department. You'll see a $41,381 increase in that department. The majority of that is with a change in the assessor position. We had a part-time assessor who was here 8 to 10 hours a week. He left us in February. And I can tell you, he's left us with significant deficiencies in that department that we are currently cleaning up. So what I have proposed is a share of a full-time employee with the town of Bolton. So we would share a full-time assessor, half the time in Wellington and half the time in Bolton. So this number represents everything. This would be our share of that full-time employee. So there is no additional cost within our insurance line items. It's all here in this area. And the selectmen did look at another option. And I will tell you, it was less than $1,000 difference between that roughly 24 hour a week part-time position with us and this part-time or this shared full-time employee. So we opted to go back here. And again, this department is responsible for assessing all of the properties, personal properties that determine our taxes in this town. And if that's not done accurately, it makes it very difficult for us to understand the revenue in what we can raise in taxation. And so I worry about our grand list being accurate, and the need for an assessor is of the utmost importance. The other increases in this department are operational increases that we're seeing across the board in support programs, whether it be in their software programs, some of the tax, their supplies, the books that they still have to use via paper. They're not able to do it digitally in order to assess the value of cars. So there is some legislation out there suggests that may change some of those, but none of that is final as of now.
Should we be asking questions as we go, or how's this orchestrated?
I'm writing mine down just so that Eric can go through the presentation, if that's okay with board members.
Is that for the whole thing?
Yeah, if you don't mind, and then I'll answer any of your questions. Certainly
Okay.
answer any of your questions.
Sure.
If we move on to the revenue collector department, the $11,641 increase here reflects an increase in salary for the revenue collector that would bring that position in line with like towns to Wellington. I can tell you currently, although it's a salary position, if you break down that salary per hour, our current revenue collector makes less per hour than the assistant revenue collector. And she has passed all of her certifications in the less than the amount of time that was required when she was hired. There's a one-time expense. The department needs new check scanners. We're not exactly sure when the last ones were ordered, but we'll see an increase in that department for make sure I look at the right one, $750 in office supplies. That's for 2 check scanners. So we don't anticipate next year we would need that, we would see a decrease. And then the other increases are, again, operational increases in various support programs that we're seeing across the board. The next department are legal expenses. We did not increase these legal expenses, certainly not having anything in litigation currently allows for us to maintain those budgets. And certainly if we had something more significant, we would come back to the board with that. So what we don't plan to do is we don't plan for a what if situation. Town clerk, you'll see some significant difference there in those salaries. There is nothing more than the typical increase. These were brought in line to match the 2 employees that are in that office now. The budget we are currently in was not representative of the 2 people that were in there. Those numbers were from previous staff. So they are trued up to the people that are in that department. The other,
Okay. Go
so
ahead.
for instance, the town clerk salary, that 44,000 was not representative of the salary the current town clerk makes. So the new salary you see is in line with Robin's salary. And so we've trued that up to the people that are in the department. The same goes for the assistant town clerk. We had a less senior assistant town clerk than we did before. And so that's why you're seeing a decrease there.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And the other increases in this department are slight. You will see a lot of those are as a result of, again, ongoing increases. The last line is notices, legal notices. Robin had a miscellaneous department before. She nor the rest of us were a fan of miscellaneous departments, so she's using that for legal notices that not necessarily budgeted for prior. So that's that $2,100. The next department is town office building operations. The main drivers here, outside of the fuel, you'll see at least one heating oil increase here. The 3% increase in our managed support from Novus, as well as the hosting and Microsoft licensing. We had the big Microsoft licensing project that's being wrapped up right now. That includes some ongoing costs for the licenses, and that's separating us from the school. In the maintenance and miscellaneous line item, you'll see a $7,000 increase. That is for a new AC unit in the vault. It's imperative that we maintain a temperature in the vault. We did some repairs to this in the spring, and the recommendation by multiple vendors was that it needed to be replaced. So I will tell you that we did remove several other items from there, and we'll try to fix those with any savings in this fiscal year if possible. The other large increase is in postage. There are 2 anticipated increases from USPS, one in July and one in January. We do not know what they will be yet, so we budgeted at a 5-cent increase each time. And we have been doing, we've seen an uptick in mailings with elections and absentee balloting, things that weren't happening before COVID. All right, if we can move on to town hall operations. Not much changed at the old town hall. The biggest increase is from heating oil. Everything else maintained status quo. The engineering department, our consulting engineers, we did not ask for an increase in that department. $10,000 for land use and $10,000 for public works. Senior center, the increases in senior center, besides the heating fuel, you'll see a 29 up straight up, you'll see a $2,984 increase in their maintenance and maintenance and miscellaneous. That's to do some line striping and resurfacing of the parking area. So it's a small parking area just in front of the senior center, between the senior center front door and the memorial. So just that small area. The next department is our health district. We pay into Eastern Highlands Health District, and we see a decrease there because it is per capita. And with our population decrease, our share decreased. The building, no change in fire main and hydrant. The building official line item is a slight increase, and that is representative of a 3% increase in the purchase service, and that is with a contract with the town of Bolton. We contract our building official with the town of Bolton. Public Works. All right, so Public Works, I will tell you, we only made one personnel adjustment, and that was moving a current position, which is a laborer, to a driver. And the driving reason for that is this particular employee does a snow plowing route. And every time they work as a driver, they are given an upgrade in pay. And this, it made more sense to us to make that position a driver. It was a very minimal increase to make it a driver, and then there's no increase overall. So the position prior to that had been laborer technician. We were unable to find someone that fit that very specific job description. And so we hired a laborer. So we've added that increase. No change to hours, just moving up one step in the union contract. We did not add, we really struggled with this. Our Public Works Director recommended a couple of additional personnel. We really considered it. And while I feel that they're necessary, it was really hard to justify that this year. I think it currently, if I had to choose, it's really needed in the assessor's position, quite frankly. So there's still a need for at least one, if not two more personnel in this department. But once again, we had to put that off. There are increases in several maintenance line items. The road maintenance, you'll see an increase of $11,000. This covers things like replacing driveway aprons, repairing around catch basins, curbing. But the main driver for that $11,000 is right at the top of your page, Mike.
Sorry, I bumped this.
That's okay.
Lost my
Sure.
spot.
Is to put in
Okay.
some guardrail, metal guardrail that needs to be replaced around town. So that's the main reason for that. You'll see a $15,000 increase for vehicle maintenance. Again, the cost of goods has significantly increased with everything. We've asked for an additional $50,000 for tree removal. I think you've heard us speak multiple times about the need to take down trees from several different diseased areas, and the emerald ash borer is one of those. And so we've bumped that from $50,000 to $100,000. Building maintenance supplies has increased, parts and supplies have increased. Just like you're seeing in your own spending, and we're seeing other departments, the cost of goods has significantly increased. And the new diesel fuel cost you see outlined here. If we, you'll see two decreases here, significant decreases in asphalt and crack seal at 15,000 and 7,000. They are incorporated later in the budget. So there's a decrease here, but it levels out later. If we look into our snow budget, the snow removal, the contractor, which is the second line there, that was, we used a 5-year average, and we used the new contracted number. So we didn't have that number in place last year. It went out to bid after budget season. And so this has trued that up, but we used a 5-year average for that budget number. And then salt, you'll see a $30,000 increase. Whether we're using treated salt or road salt, salt has gone up on average $30 a ton, which is, it's unfathomable to me. And we do use a state approved vendor for that. So those are the drivers for the increases in snow budget. The next item, we used to call it chip seal. We've called it road maintenance because we need to do more than just chip sealing. And there were some lines, excuse me, in this budget that you'll see no dollars amount for. We didn't actually use them for what they were outlined for. So we've kind of reworked this. So the first line is chip seal. The chip seal line, which is $145,000, incorporates the three lines. So the $20,000 you see from truck rental, from oil roller and chipper, and then in chip seal is $145,000 line. So there's no increase there. It's the same cost. It's just in one line item now. Asphalt, there is a decrease there. That does incorporate some of those costs that we deleted from above. So it's in one area. But I will tell you that Troy removed some of the costs here when we were looking at what we could cut. There is a CIP proposal for road maintenance software that will give us a data-driven look at road maintenance that needs to be done. And Troy felt that this year he could spend a little bit less there as we take a look at the condition of the roads based on that data, and then move forward next year. So there's a slight decrease there. And then there's an increase in cost of crack seal. So there's a lot of work that will need to be done in this area before we chip seal. So the overall budget is an increase of $22,000. But again, several of those, most of that increase is a result of pulling from different line items earlier in the budget. So it shows an increase, but it's pretty flat. That brings Public Works to an overall increase of $128,863. Cemetery, no change, a $2,000 budget for those folks. The transfer station is a $30,139 increase. Again, the driving cost there is in our contracted services for trash and bulky waste pickup. We did last year sign a new contract. We were able to get them to keep the contract flat for the first year, excuse me, but this current fiscal year, we began paying the new contracted rate, and we are just seeing more everyday trash, household trash, and more bulky waste. So I don't know if it's still as a result of people being home. So all of their trash is accumulated at home in Wellington, and so we're seeing it. That is the biggest driver there. Housing Authority, Social Security, that is based on current census of employees. We've left unemployment flat at $1,000. The employee insurances, again, is based on the current census of employees, and again, a 0% increase in health insurance and an assumed increase in dental and life. It's no more than 5%. You may see larger increases there on paper, but again, that's because of the census of employees over this year over last year. Pension fund benefits. There is an increase here. And again, based on a census of current staff. Our workers' comp and LAF.
Erica,
Decrease.
you're
I
showing a
apologize.
decrease.
Decrease.
Okay.
Yep.
It's good. Let's stay with decrease.
Yes. We don't see that very often. Our workers' comp and LAP work out to again be a decrease of just over $1,300. Miscellaneous. We did add a little bit to this budget. I think it's important that we recognize our staff in different ways. We have staff members that have been here over 30 years, and we don't do any formal recognition. Certainly, it's important to me to keep our staff, maintain them, and some of that is just a little bit of appreciation for them. And this was really important to me, so I've added some dollars to that budget for that. Debt service, these are items that again you'll see on the CIP budget, and there's an overall decrease in those. That's the bond on the library, lease principal, and interest on the animal control vehicle, and some SCBA packs, and then general bond interest. Capital expenditures is, again, this is another result of CIP. There is an overall decrease of 148 plus $1,000. So that's, yes, so that's all of our expenditures. With our new software, it's broken out a little bit differently. So some of those departments that get a fund transfer are in the next area you'll see. And so the transfer out to capital reserve, again, a result of CIP, is $345,923. So that's an increase of $254. You'll hear about that in the CIP presentation. Transfer to the housing authority is flat at 2182. You heard from Tina, our animal control officer. So her budget is here, the transfer out to the dog fund. While you hear them separately, their budgets are encompassed in the Board of Selectmen budget, as well as the Human Services budget. I will tell you the budget you received from Human Services was a larger increase than this. This is an item where we have asked to bring the Human Services Director salary in line with like towns, as well as adding staff to service the senior center. So that would be new. So this increase is merely 25% of the total increase now. So the plan is to phase that into the town's budget using ARPA funds. Certainly the Human Services Department has been one, if not the most town department affected by COVID. We've seen an incredible increase in residents that need to be serviced there. Our most vulnerable and our seniors no longer have someone, they had a long-term volunteer that worked at the senior center. Again, volunteer, so there was no cost for that. So the plan is to phase this in 25% on the town side in year 1, 50% in year 2, 75% in year 3, so that then in that 4th year, all of that is now within the town. So that's what we proposed, so that using ARPA funds for something like that was phased into the town budget. And that's the only thing you'll see from me that will have lasting effects as a result of ARPA funds. So that brings the entire selectmen's budget increase to $375,259. You're muted, Mike. It's not a Zoom meeting if we don't say it.
That was to cover a sneeze from before. So, thank you for the detailed presentation. I'm gonna hit a few questions now and then go off to the rest of the board here. Just want to be clear on the assessor thing. The way it looks like in the line for the assessor is that it's $61,000 for half an assessor.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that's half of the salary and half of all the benefits.
That is correct.
Okay, that's pretty expensive, right? I mean,
it's pretty average.
That puts that person at like $100,000 a year.
We used 90,000 as the salary piece, and I will tell you what we did. I proposed this, and then we looked at another model, which was a part-time using our benefits, and there was Donna, do you remember the number? I think it was like an $800 difference.
Yes, $800.
So you didn't see it all in the salary line item. It would have been broken up over others. So the difference of us sharing a full-time staff member and having much more access to someone was $800 between our benefits and paying it all. So you'll see it all in this department because we would be paying the town of Bolton. They would they would cover all of the benefits on their end. But that is half of the total proposal.
Okay, so it's about a $90,000 salary and $30,000 in FTE costs, and we're covering half of that.
Yes.
Okay. The revenue collector, you talked about the revenue collector being behind the their assistant.
Yes.
it still comes out to what looks like, if I'm doing it right, a 23% raise.
That is correct.
Okay. I think we should be treating our employees well. A 23% raise is a heck of a jump. In Public Works, you talked about that sort of technician position or whatever it was called before, which was in between laborer and a driver. When there were storms, you were using that person as a driver, so you were paying upgrade during those hours. Is that?
Yes, anytime a laborer is behind the wheel of the truck driving,
Right.
they're given
right.
that
They get
upgrade.
upgraded. Yep.
Yeah, and it happens it happens all the time when he's plowing, and it happens a lot more often and oftentimes just because of the small nature of our crew.
Right. So does that mean now this person will only be doing driving and now the technician work is not happening anymore?
That person didn't have the qualifications to, they were only a laborer. They didn't have the qualifications for the technician. So
Well, no. We've been over this before in meetings. That person was a technician. That job was specifically created for them. They were a step above the laborer.
Okay, so let me stop you right there. The person that was in that position, Mike, last year took a new position as a driver. The person that was hired, that position was created for, took a new position as a driver.
Okay, so the person who was put in to replace him was not qualified for the job.
We did not have a qualified applicant.
Okay.
So instead of hiring a labor technician, we hired a laborer. So what has been happening in Public Works is the person who previously filled that oftentimes is called upon to do a lesser paying job at his higher paying rate per the contract. So we still have someone in the shop who can do those same things. He's just in a very different position now.
Okay, so the previous technician moved up to driver.
Correct.
Okay, then you couldn't get a qualified technician, so you hired a laborer to backfill that position.
Yes.
Now that person was not qualified to be a technician, but they're qualified to be the hired position of driver.
Yes.
Okay.
So the difference is they have a CDL. He has a CDL and can drive. And because we only got one snow contractor, we only had one bid, and Troy once again tried to find someone else. We had to put someone in a truck to plow a route.
Okay. So now that person who is being moved up in this budget request, would that leave a hole in doing the technician work, or that person would still work down in the technician role when needed?
So the person that would be currently moving up to the driver position is doing none of the technician work. The previous laborer technician became a driver. He will still continue to help until such time as we had someone else.
I got you. Okay, so the technician position was just not ever really refilled.
Just never really filled.
Okay, so you gained a laborer position.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes and no, because
Because you
driver
didn't fill the technician, you gained a laborer position.
because he was a laborer and a technician. So he did the technician when there was work to do, and then he was a laborer. So.
Okay. All right.
Can I just ask, when you guys are talking about technician, are you talking mechanic?
Well, yes, but no. So we don't have a true mechanic. A position was created for someone within the Public Works Department years ago, and we just didn't have anyone qualified. We didn't get a lot of applicants. We're seeing that in many other towns, and people are really struggling. And this was pretty specialized, but a mechanic didn't want to apply for it because of the salary. Certainly isn't a mechanic salary. And then to get someone, lesser, we just didn't get any applicants. So the person who had some of those qualifications before is still helping us do that work.
Great. Okay, so 15% increase in vehicle maintenance, but also in the conversations we've been having with Troy, especially in capital, we've been buying a lot of new trucks to get rid of some of the old rundown fleet. And the intent was to reduce maintenance.
Yeah, and we hope that still to be, I know I think he's on here somewhere. If he wants to chime in.
I am on here, yes.
There you go. And so what Troy will talk to you about is the increase in cost to do some of that maintenance.
Okay, so that's.
Go ahead, Troy.
No,
Okay,
that's,
go ahead.
and Mike, I just I know you are having I don't want to say a hard time thinking we've added the fleet. we put a spare truck and we have one spare F-450. That's it. Like, we didn't gain 100 trucks. Like, that's, I'm having an issue with that. Like, I know we've talked about it with CIP. So
Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the increase of 15% maintenance when you've asked for new trucks to reduce the maintenance.
Well, right, but still, I mean, oil's gone up, everything has
Yeah.
gone up, labor's gone up in garages if they go out. We've asked for a mechanic, that was declined. So there's a cost of everything that goes up. Last year I bought oil for $1,500. This year the same oil was $4,700. So
Okay.
that's where those increases are coming. Things that
Okay.
Napa's charging more, Amazon's charging more for parts. We bought car soap the other day for $300. Like, that's, you know, it's a big barrel of car soap. It lasts a year, but unfortunately it goes up.
Yep.
That's the
Okay.
price.
So Troy, I'm glad you're on because you're the perfect guy for my next question. The salt budget went up quite a bit. Erica mentioned that the increase in the salt, you know, was just astounding. And we're hearing that, just like you're talking about with the oil. Prices are going up crazy everywhere. We've talked before about the cost of salt over sand.
Yep.
And I know there was some discussion in the past, the DEP didn't want you using sand because it plugged up the waterways. What actually is is there a rule somewhere or a policy or a law? Like, what is forcing us to use just salt?
Well, the MS4, so the drainage, what the state has put for the catch basins, your water sampling and all that stuff. The state is pushing to go to salt. We still use sand and salt mix. Sometimes we use the pure treated salt depending on what storms, you know, and how the storms act. But that's where the state is pushing because they're considering all your catch basin sweeping hazardous material.
Right.
So basically all that stuff that we stockpile is the DEP is considering it, you know, a hazardous. Technically, it's supposed to be hauled out by a company and you probably wouldn't want to see that bill. You'd buy a mountain of salt before you would see that bill. So there's less time with sweeping, less catch basin cleaning. The state is basically pushing towards pure salt.
So so you're saying there's a cost balance in not having to get rid of that sand, there's less sweeping and all that.
Absolutely.
But and this probably isn't your problem, but it seems like pouring pure salt on the roads is not the most environmentally sound situation. Is there any discussion in your business about that?
No, everybody's considering the salt is better than the sand because it's filling up waterways. It's filling up, you know, retention ponds with it when it gets flushed through on heavy rains. So that's where the states, you know, they're saying that the salt, I mean, eventually the more salt you keep putting down, I mean, if you drive on the highway, you can see the salt the trees are burning, you know, from the salt. But
Right.
Basically, unfortunately, is still saying that they want salt being used.
And the state is driving this. This is part of the MS4 program.
Yep.
So-
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Did someone have a question?
Yeah, I just, while you're on that topic, is DEEP in sync with that, or is that a DOT judgment on salt?
No, DEEP is involved with the MS4. That all goes through them. So that's who's pursuing that.
Okay.
Was pushing the salt.
And where's the catch basin sweeping line? I can't seem to find it right now. You guys know?
Well, there's not a sweeping line. There's a pump catch basin cleaning for
Yeah, where is that?
22,000, I believe.
Let's see. I'm just looking to find it.
No, right there, Mike. Line pump is right where the street.
Sorry, I'm
sign-
unmuted. Go up a page, Mike. You need to scroll up.
I'm trying. There we
Okay,
go.
right there. Stop right there. It's 311 570 pump catch basins. So
Oh,
we
here
did
we
not,
go. Yeah.
we did not increase that line.
Okay.
Right, but why would it be the same if we're using predominantly salt now? That's,
Well,
what I mean, shouldn't that go down some with all
They're
this?
still
We have the
pumping
same number of
them.
basins.
Right, but we don't have the cluttering that I'm being told that sand creates.
They're still pumping the same amount of basins, no matter if it's got a bucket of sand in it or it's got 10 buckets of sand in it. They're
But it
cleaning
could be more, if we're using sand, there's more in there. And so some of these catch basins could have to be pumped multiple times. We budget for them to be done annually, so just once a year. So we've been able to maintain that once a year pumping, as opposed to having to do it a couple of times or full and clogged catch basins from the winter time.
But aren't we just now going to fuller salt? Or are you saying we've been doing that for 2 years or something?
Troy?
When I first started, Stephanie, the basins, they were using, just sand, and they were using 3 buckets of sand and a bucket of salt. So there was a lot more material. So we've broken that down. The first year we went to like a 1-to-1 mix and with sand and salt. And then that's how we mixed it. This year we've actually went to 4 buckets of salt to 1 bucket of sand to almost pure salt towards the end here now. So there's still basins that, this year we had a lot of roads actually wash out. The dirt roads, Mason Road has basins on them. Some of these hills that had some debris that got washed into the basins. So some of these basins actually got cleaned out 2 and 3 times this year due to the rain. Eventually that will go down, because once you go to pure salt, you probably could skip a year doing basins or half that, because you can hit your hills in your certain spots where you're going to have an issue. There's still debris that goes into a catch basin. There's leaves, everything still flows down in there. So it's they do need to be pumped out once a year or every other year, but that's something that needs to be done.
And
Okay.
Troy, you're saying the disposal cost is reduced because you're not shipping out contaminated soil.
Right, exactly.
At $450 a ton. Just throw that out there. So Stephanie, the hope is that we can decrease this over time.
Right, because how long have we been doing 4 salt to 1 sand?
Just this year.
This year.
Okay, so, okay.
We're slowly getting there.
Okay, those were all the questions I had. Thank you, Troy and Erica, for those answers. Other board members. Just make sure you call out, because I'm with the screen share. I can only see a couple of people here. Anybody else with questions for Erica, any of the budgets she's presented tonight?
Well, I had a couple things, but I didn't want to, if
ahead.
someone else has a question, I'd rather.
Go ahead.
Okay, just like from the first, Erica, can you tell me what the treasurer offset in salary is? Is it about 30,000 or something?
Yeah,
That's sort of
it's not the full, it's not the full amount. Let me pull up the full budget.
It
here.
seems like
Give me a
she was
second.
paid something like 30 something, 30.
She was, and it went down to about 6,000. Give me 1 second. The salary went from 32,680 to 6,858. So it was a $25,000, almost $26,000 decrease. So it's not the full cost of the assistant business manager.
It's half
but
of,
20 yeah.
or under half, yeah.
Yes, as well as insurance benefits. The treasurer was an elected official, so there were
But
no.
they didn't have any, yeah.
Yeah, if they purchased insurance, they pay the full premium.
Okay.
I will tell you, we started that position in November. And I believe Michael's beginning to, well, we started in November. Michael began in January. Is that right, Donna? I think it was at the end of January. So they're starting to get up to speed with the full office down there. So.
Oh yeah, on the second page, about the computer. Let's see, line, where was that?
What department?
Oh yeah, the computer expense going down. I just didn't hear what your reason for that was.
But which department?
Oh, I'm
Stephanie?
sorry,
That's
it's
okay.
town clerk.
The town clerk. Let me look at that line with you, make sure I give you the right answer. Which computer line?
Oh, computer expense, it says
Can you
430.
can you give us the number at the beginning?
Yeah, is there a department?
181.
Oh, okay, not town clerk. Sorry, town, The
Oh, I'm sorry.
department comes
That was-
under all of the expenses. We
Yeah,
have
I'm
a
sorry.
3%. So there are multiple things that make up that, but the biggest driver is our managed support, our IT services, and that was a 3% increase. So the overall department, there was a $21,000 decrease in that line item because we had this big computer project in this current year that we'd budgeted $39,800 for. So when we take that out, that there was an overall decrease, but the IT service did go up 3%, as well as that's the managed support and our hosting. I will tell you, there's also $1,500 in that department for some training on phishing and scams. Our staff would benefit from that. So all these preventative things we can do to keep our systems safe and secure. So it's a big decrease, but there's an increase built in there.
Oh, yeah. And then I was wondering, this is kind of for Troy, the tree removal service, it's on, 311 and then 573. And I just wondered if that's, because that's doubling what we spent before. Is that, what is kind of a rough per tree cost that you use for your figure for per tree removed?
Okay, all right. So it's bid out, and basically they get $1,600 a day to remove trees. So if it's one big tree or if it's 4 small trees, they come, they give us what it is, and that's how it goes. So I can't tell you one tree cost, $300 to take down. Sometimes he can take down 5 trees, 6 trees in a day, and other times he's taken 1 tree down in a day. Mason Road has been hit really, really hard with the emerald ash borer. And we're looking at about $40,000 to remove those trees just on that one road. That's why the increase is. So maybe next year the increase won't be so high, but this year that one road costs about $40,000 to remove the trees. That's just one road out of 70 in this town.
Okay, thanks very much. Oh, and then just under employee health insurance waivers that went down, that's going up.
That's a placeholder for a potential negotiated cost.
Okay, you mean you think more people will want to be insured, or what do you?
So that's for waivers, so people not taking insurance, but I will tell you that's a
Oh, okay.
placeholder with the current census of staff and a potential adjustment in the contract.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I hate sounding so vague.
No, I get it. I get it. You can't get too specific.
As soon as I can be very specific with you, I will tell you what all of these numbers are based off of.
Okay. Contract related, that's what you meant.
Yes.
Okay. I think that I just didn't understand on the last page when you're talking about, I think you were talking about the 8% increase in transfer out human services.
Mm-hmm.
And you said something about, you were talking about a 25% being, rolling assumption by the town and the costs there.
Do you recall when Jenny came to you with the human services budget?
I sure do. Yeah.
And so when she did, she proposed an increase in salary of the director's salary, as well as an increase in the assistant salary. And the assistant salary would now go up to a part-time position. It would be 30 hours a week. 25 of those would be working in the senior center, running the senior center. So my proposal then was to split those increases using ARPA funds, so that 25% of the total increase of that salary is in the operating budget this year, and 75% we're asking for from ARPA. Next year, the plan is to ask for 50% from ARPA and 50% from the town. In the third year, which is the last year we can use ARPA funds, 25% from ARPA and 75% would be in the budget. So that instead of seeing one big jump in one year, that we can slowly see that operating budget increase. Trying to offset the operations increase in one year. And this is a department that has been affected by COVID.
So that's so that's just the assistant job that you're doing that
No,
with.
no. So it's a combination of the two.
So the pay adjustment for
The
Jenny?
pay adjustment for the director and then the increase for the assistant. So we're asking to phase that in 25%, 50%, 75% in operating over 3 years.
Okay. And then after that, the town's like full up on that.
Yes, and
You-
it'll be a much smaller increase in hit at that point. And I believe an appropriate use of ARPA funds. We could have gone for ARPA funds for all of it, but then we'd be responsible for it in the budget. So I thought this was the better way to do it, to ease ourselves into that.
So what would you expect that impact to be next year? Like,
I don't have that number because there would also be adjustments with union contracted increases. But I can tell you, we asked for 15,000. I believe it's just over 15,000 from ARPA.
okay.
So what we're asking from ARPA is all of it, and then it will be paid over 3 years. And then you'll see the small increases to bring us up to a full increase.
So 15K is the total?
The total of the increases, yes, over 3 years. But again, that's an increment, asking ARPA for 75%, then 50%, then 25%.
Right. But I mean, is 15K the total, or is that one for 1 year?
That's the total.
I'm kind of confused.
That's what that's what we were asking for from ARPA.
In
Donna,
year
is that
one,
number
or
correct? Is that the correct
in
number?
all 3 years?
Or is the 15%, the 15,000 we asked for just year one? Jenny, you put that request in. Go ahead, Donna.
It's confusing because we are saying 75% of the increase, but I think what we want is 75% of the total, because the second year, the increase is just a couple of $1,000.
Minimal. It's minimal. The
And
biggest-
so
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're just looking at the increase between this year and next year, the increase is, like $15,000. And then the next year it's $2,000. And the next year it's $3,000.
So the biggest chunk, Stephanie, is going to come in year one out of ARPA, because it's a larger jump from a very, very part-time assistant to a 30-hour-a-week assistant. So that's where the bulk of it will come from ARPA in year one. And that will be minimal increases to the operating budget after that.
Okay.
Joe?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch back on the shared assessor. Has there been any formal understanding of a time split? How this person's is going to be sent to Wellington and how he's going to be dispatched to Bolton?
Sure. So we've talked briefly about, I can't tell you exactly what days yet, but I can tell you that Bolton has a late night and Wellington has a late night. So those 2 days, that person would be in the respective town. So Mondays we're here from 12:30 to 7:30. We'd anticipate our assessor being here that day. And then we would split the other 2 days in half. So they would be, 2.5 days here and 2.5 days in Bolton.
Okay. Secondly, on the same shared assessor, and I'm assuming this was done, we're essentially paying Bolton for the services and they're putting him under their benefits package.
Correct.
With the deal that we recently received, did we investigate maybe him being a Wellington employee and utilizing our benefits to save some money?
So we did talk about that. I think we had to choose one, and I don't know that it would save us money. We use their benefits. Certainly, it's important to both towns that we attract an assessor. This is a challenge area. There are not an abundance of assessors out there, I have to tell you. And so trying to attract an assessor that will work in our two towns is important. And the benefits package that goes along with that is one of those factors. And so we use Bolton's simply. Just that's what we determined. And I will tell you, I can't stress enough that our grand list is a direct result of the work that comes out of the assessor's office. And it's important that if we don't have a good assessor, the effects could be incredibly damaging. And I say that knowing that we're looking at some significant deficiencies that are being uncovered in the assessor's office currently. And we use $90,000 as a max salary. We certainly have room to negotiate in there. There's nothing been put out. We haven't been put out to hire. Both towns are going through a budget process, which would be an increase for both of our towns. So it's not as though Bolton already was spending this kind of money, where both towns are asking for an increase of their townspeople. But it's important to me that we have an assessor that not only is here and can do the work, but that is responsive to our residents. And that means having them here more often to actually be available to our residents. With a very part-time assessor over multiple years, that's what we haven't had. And if you were at our last selectmen's meeting, we had a longtime resident and business owner in Willington express his concerns about how from October until February, he had not gotten the responses that one would expect from the assessor's office, a complete lack of by our assessor, not our assistant assessor. And so it was concerning, to say the least. And so this is something that that's incredibly important to us. So again, I remind us that all of the taxable revenue comes from the assessor's office first. Janice works really hard to collect it, but it's
All right. I think this has been asked and answered, and it's 8:30. I want to keep us moving. So can we go to the next question? If there are any more.
The only thing I wondered is Bolton doing reval the same time we are?
They are, and we've talked about that and the concern of that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there anything else for the selectmen budget presentation? Any more questions? All right, thank you again, Erica.
You're welcome.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it is. And again, I can't stress enough to you that the selectmen didn't come at this lightly, and we did take some significant cuts. We began almost 18%, maybe 19% when we started. So paring it down wasn't easy, but the cost of goods is really hitting us all hard. But I think it's important.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Let's talk about capital CIP.
Do you want me to share my screen, Mike?
Yeah, if you would like to go ahead. That way you can scroll what you're talking about.
Kelsey, can you make me able to share, please?
I thought I had made it.
Be able to.
Okay. Make sure I pull up the right thing here. All right, can you all see this? I should have pulled it over. Sort of. I'm going to zoom in so you can see. So Christina, who's not with us tonight, is chair of CIP and would normally be making this presentation. So we have several members of CIP on here, Mike and Stephanie. So feel free to speak about this. I will tell you, you can see on the page in the selectmen's budget that had the nice pie chart. You can see what the overall increase for CIP is. So the overall increase to start with CIP, I don't have that up on my screen. It's this nice one with the pie chart, and it's the bottom portion. Is $64,465 or a 10% increase. So that's made up of a direct fund to capital reserve, our debt repayment, our debt repayment of public works leases, and that is in the public works budget and capital expenditures. So give me 1 second while I try to zoom. You tell me when it's a little bit easier to read for you. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yep.
that's very
Okay,
good.
so I'll start with talking about the dollars. We have in year one, here in fiscal year 22-23, those are the dollars that are affected in this current budget, and you saw they are encompassed in the selectmen's budget that I just presented to you. So this is not an additional appropriation, it's already incorporated. So the first thing is investing into the capital reserve. Oh, is Christina here?
I was just gonna say Christina just arrived.
Well, I mean, if she
Okay.
wants to, I wouldn't mind
Okay,
handing over the discussion. You tell me where to
Okay.
scroll.
okay, okay, so you just talked about how this, I just heard you say it, explain
just
that this is in the operating budget.
Yes.
Okay, and yes, the very top line is the capital reserve. And if you look where she's pointing, that is the amount that is in the budget to go into capital reserve. The blue line is the total for that year. And then if you go over to column F, that would be the amount that would be going into capital reserve over the next 5 years. So that's the basic way to look at this whole thing. So capital reserve is one important number. The library, which is right underneath it, is another pretty big number, which is $177,000. That's the bond for the library. We only have a few years left to be paying off that bond. Yeah, 2027, which is just a few years away now. At one point, it seemed like it was very, very far in the future, but it's not anymore. And then you can see we've got a few things like the animal control pickup that was purchased in 2017 on a lease. There's a $4,400 payment on that. All these other numbers right below that are for lease payments as well. There's a dump truck from 2018, from 2022, which was last year. There's a dump truck, the 450, the Ford F-350, and a roadside mower from 2020. So all of those, there's nothing we can do about their lease payments. They have to be made, or we have to, I guess the equipment would get repoed. Is what would happen. Then it starts to get into the things that are discretionary. So if it's bold, we have to pay it. If it's below that, where it starts with the 2023 public works dump, that is that's what we're planning on doing for this year, and it's sort of new spending. So there's another dump truck in the plan, which would be to replace, I forgot which year, but 2011, I think. And the idea with this one would be to purchase it outright using capital reserve funds, and as opposed to leasing it. And the reason why, I don't know if you got too much into the reason why, Erica, did you talk about that?
We
Okay.
just started.
Okay, so the reason why, when we get down lower to the Board of Education, is where we see the just the impact of a major school project. So either we're going to be renovating one or both schools, or we're going to be building a new school. And either way, it's going to be a huge impact. The number that we put in for bonding is $18 million, which we all agree is probably a low number. But it was an estimate that was available, and we just wanted to put something in so that we could see what those bond payments would be in the future, in the out years, and just to think through like what we should be doing right now. And what we thought is we should purchase some things and get some projects done while we can, so that in those out years we're not going to be further burdened with those costs. So So we have the dump truck purchasing it outright. We have an excavator purchasing it outright for $79,000. We have pavement management software for $20,000. We have the Village Hill Drainage Phase 2, which is just putting in some basins for $60,000. That would be basically be done in-house by Public Works. The Schofield Road Drainage Phase 1, $35,000. And the generator for Public Works, which is $69,000. And that was actually requested of the ARPA Commission to purchase with the ARPA funds. So we don't know the outcome of that yet, and if ARPA is going to approve that. But right now it's a request and it's a possibility. So that's what the plan is at the moment. They are likely going, it's going to take a few more weeks before we know if ARPA is going to approve that. So for now, we should probably assume that they will. And then if they don't, then we need a new plan. But right now that's what it is. And the radios are for the Wellington 1.
It's
And
both.
It's for both. It's
for both, yeah. That's another ARPA request, and the SCV air packs is another ARPA request, and those are two of the bigger projects, and so we're hopeful that those will go through it. They're criteria wise for ARPA, they're great because they're one-time expenses and they are for public safety, so they fall nicely within the category. So we're hopeful. We have $80,000 to start the engineering for the fire station for Wellington 1. Repairing the driveway aprons is another $30,000. There's a first response vehicle for Wellington Hill, which is a $75,000 vehicle, but we only need to pay the lease payment on that, which is $12,000 next year. What else we got? The engine tank refurbishment for $25,000 for Wellington Hill, and then there's the purchase of a new ambulance for $300,000, but it's in the plan right now to do a lease payment on that. So to lease it, so that would be $48,000 a year for I think 7 years. So that's what that is. And then what else is there? The band room needs air conditioning, and we think ARPA could be used for that. They also need some sidewalk repairs very badly at both schools. So that's what those other expenses are. And all of that would come out of capital reserve. And then we have the school building committee consultant, another $100,000. It's similar to last year, how that worked. And then the assessor reval, $30,000. So those are all the projects. And I know, several of us are on the committees. Oh, that isn't all the projects. Yeah, so yeah, we have the River Road Workout Pavilion through ARPA would be $20,000. And I don't know, they were saying that they might want to pull that request, but I haven't heard that they did. So we're going to assume that it's still in the plan. So yeah, it all adds up to $709,000 in local fund spending and $1.6 million in off-budget spending, which is which is what it is.
Christina, could I add something before we scroll too far up
Yeah.
about that the schools? I mean, I just wanted to explain to people about all the zeros, because that's presuming something is, coming in of significant nature to, address our 75-year-old and 100-year-old school roughly. And so we're, a lot of projects that were in the CIP plan from before have basically been delayed out on the presumption that we're going to be addressing the schools in a more aggressive way.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on what Stephanie said, when we sat down as a committee, and I know I argued that while it's easy for us to have an A plan and a B plan, if the school building committee, whatever project they bring forth, if it doesn't pass, then we'd have these projects somehow built into the plan, or a project that I thought it was important that as a committee, we chose a plan, right? It's the hard work we were tasked to do was to provide a plan, and that meant going one way or the other. So since the school building committee was in a forward process, that we opted to put in the funding for a potential renovation or new build, whichever that will come from that instead. So if that doesn't happen, then CIP next year would be revisiting a plan with these options. And from what we've heard from Superintendent Stevens, probably many more.
Mhm. Does anybody have any questions about any of it? I can't tell if anybody is.
I'm going to stop sharing, and then someone tell me if they need it.
No questions?
Does
Okay.
Jeff have his hand up?
It's got to be tired by now. This is one of these items that by the time it gets from CIP through Board of Finance to, through Board of Selectmen, back to Board of Finance, it has had a lot of Board of Finance input. You currently have 3 members. Last year you had 5 members on that committee. So there's a lot of Board of Finance input in this process. And the Board of Selectmen did pass the plan as it is. We made no adjustments to it.
Okay. Anything else? Discussion on CIP? Okay. Thank you, Erica and Christina, for presenting that. All right, we're on to revenue. Donna, are you ready?
Yes, yes,
want me-
Mike, yes.
You want me to share? Here, I'll share again.
Yes, share the memo. So
you
last
go.
week, everyone should have received a 1-page memo that is a first look at what the revenue will look like for next year. And I'm going to start with this year's revenue budget, and that's the first column. And our revenue is $17 million, and then assigned fund balance is 1 million this year. So we have a total revenue budget this year of $18 million. So the revenue category is the standard basic categories for Wellington. We get money from property taxes, from the state, from our license fees and building permit fees, from investment income, and the last category is other revenue. So now as we look to next year and what we think we might have for revenue coming into the town, we start with the first category of property taxes. And we know that there was growth in the grant list of $15 million. And if we use the current mill rate of 29.99 and we collect 99%, that increase in the grant list would create an additional $450,000 in tax revenue. So far we have $450,000 more in tax revenue than we had last year if the mill rate stays the same. Then we go to the second category, which is our state money from the state. And what we need to keep in the back of our mind on state revenue is that the governor has proposed a cap on motor vehicle tax of 99 mils. And then the state would give us a little bit of money to make up for what we didn't collect from the taxpayer. So for now, I'm just keeping that in the back of my mind, waiting to see what passes. I didn't put any extra money in state money. I just put it all coming from the taxpayer. But if that proposal is passed, then I'll adjust the revenue budget. Less from the taxpayer, more from the state. So the $4,000 that you see from the state, we're getting a little bit more in pilot, a little bit less in judicial, and it nets to an increase of $4,000. The license fees, just basically about the same. The investment income, we are truing that up. We think we are going to get about $5,000 in interest. That's handled by the treasurer, and our 20,000 was high for this year, and we think it's only going to be about $5,000. And then miscellaneous, $37,000. So for revenue, we think about 17 million, almost $18 million between taxes and state and license fees and interest income and other. So now we get to, that's an overall increase of 439,000. Now we get to the fund balance. Last year we assigned $1 million. I don't think we're going to have $1 million to assign this year because I'm thinking we're not going to need to use all of that 1 million, maybe 800,000 will need to be used to balance out the budget. So I'm just thinking about 355,000 signing from fund balance, which puts us at about a little over $18 million. So you can see that if our spending is exactly the same this year, like next year, as it is this year, we are going to be short $260,000 in revenue. So what that means, if you want to equate that to what is $260,000 that you need to get from the taxpayer, you can figure that 1 mil is about 440,000. So this is about a $500,000 increase. Even before we add any new spending onto the budget, we're looking at a $500,000 increase just to get to where we were last year. So you can take it from there and look at the bottom line of the expenditure report, and we're looking at increasing expenditures, an increase in expenditures of $700,000. Plus, we're going to need to get another 260,000, another 200,000, let's say, from the taxpayers. So with the way everything looks, and I do the fast math, if we want to increase our spending by $700,000, we are going to need to increase our mill rate over 2 mills to pay for that, to raise that amount of money. Because we're talking about raising, 19,236,000. And last year we needed to raise 18,507,000.
Okay. Donna, question.
Yes.
What are you anticipating the fund balance to be before we take anything out of it to adjust it?
Okay, it's hard to get a read on that until I get a commitment from Superintendent Stevens on how much he's going to turn back and how much Erica's going to turn back. Right now, my assumption is everybody's going to spend their budgets. And there's
Okay.
not going to be any expenditure money coming back. And I
Okay.
think there might be about $100,000 more in revenue that we pull in, and that'll come in property taxes.
Okay. So what do you think the number might be for the fund balance then? It's whatever so it's whatever we have in the fund right now.
Plus 100,000. Is that how you see it? Because go ahead.
Right, so we have a section of the fund balance that we haven't touched, that we left
Yep.
whatever it was, the 12% or whatever we left in the fund.
Yes, correct.
Which was 2 point something million?
Yeah, 2.6, right, Mike? Was it
Yeah,
2.6 or
2.6.
2.2? I gotta look it up.
I think it's 2.6, but I don't remember for sure.
It is. It's 2.2. It's 2.26.
Okay, so 2.2 plus the 100,000 in expected extra tax revenue. Right?
Yes.
Then you said you thought that we would not use all of the million, or is that already factored into the 100,000 in extra tax revenue? So
Go ahead.
if we didn't use the whole $1 million that's in the current fiscal year budget, that would, you said you thought we'd use 8. So that would leave another 200 in fund balance, or is that not?
I think that is, I have to write the numbers down and follow it through.
Okay.
It's hard for me.
Part of that might be the extra 100,000 in revenue is already boiled into that.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. So right now, it's only safe to say, we know for sure we have the 2.26. And,
Yes.
and it's a safe guess that we're going to add at least 100,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can assign
It's a start.
8 to 10. You can, we're at 12% right now, but your choice can go down to 10%,
Sure. Yep.
however you want to handle it.
Right.
I just think it's not going to be as much as our 1 million. And we have to make that up.
Sure.
now,
Sure. Yep.
Because anyway, that's the first look at it.
Okay. So another question, going back to that, to the revenue sheet.
Yeah.
In other places in our budgeting, we refer to those in slightly different names. So we refer to local. And local, I assume, is all that stuff you showed there, the taxes, the fees and permits, the interest, all those things were local, right?
Correct. That is all local. That's, yes, that's all local.
And then we had a line in our previous planning that's called State of Connecticut, and then we had a line called Educational Revenue.
Okay, that's intergovernmental.
So the educational is the intergovernmental.
Yes, that is ECS money and transportation money from the state for K
That's
through 8.
what I thought. Okay.
So
And
everything
then
else on here
state-
is local. Right,
Except
Donna?
a bit of state, the state revenue that you talked about.
So that's all intergovernmental, Mike.
So the educational and the state is all put together in intergovernmental?
Yes, on my 1-page memo, it's all
Okay.
in one line item.
Okay, gotcha. All right, we have in previous years in certain budget planning, we've separated out educational revenue from state of Connecticut. I'm not sure why, but as long as I know that number is all together, I understand. Okay, other people with questions for Donna? I'm expanding my screen out. There we go. Anybody else with questions for Donna about revenue? Okay, thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
All right, and don't go away, Donna, because we have to talk about auditor's contract.
Yes.
you had said that the auditor's contract is up this year. I assume you mean June 30th?
It ended with the last year's audit. Yes, June
Okay.
30th, the 2021 audit is the last year of the contract.
Okay. So your question to me was, did it make sense to ask for an extension versus, I guess, rebidding it?
Yes, that's correct. Would
Okay.
the board, would you be agreeable to, if I asked Mahoney Sable for a price for 2 more years with them?
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, I think there's some value to the fact that they know us already. They understand our systems. But I'll look to other people on the board. Is there any guidance we want to give Donna on that? It seems not.
Mike?
Yes.
Yeah, I've understood in the past that there's some advantage to changing auditors occasionally, check books from the previous auditors. I don't know if this is the time to do it or not. I would gather not, because I don't have a lot of information on that, but that's just something to keep in mind.
Okay. So you need to change which chicken is in charge of the hen house every so often.
Correct.
Okay.
The only thing I'd say about timing on that is it would kind of, since we've recently asked for advice on ARPA and, you know, how to handle all these different pots of money we have now. I would say this is not the time to do it.
Not the time to change.
Right. Just
I
because
would concur.
it's complicated now.
Mhm.
And they gave us advice and we're doing what they say, and I'd like them to sort of get that baton passed, you know?
All right. Do we have anything else from the board on this question? No. Donna, it seems like, I mean, you always are kind of responsible for making the contracting decisions to be done the right way. So we'll count on you to still do that, but I think the board is amenable to you extending Mahoney Sable.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes new business. Correspondence, you all have everything that I have. We're back to present to speak. Anyone who is on this call who would like to speak, turn on your camera, wave your hand, or unmute and call out your name. Erica?
I forgot to share this in the beginning, and then I thought I'd wait till good and welfare, but I'm just going to share it now. Our current collection rate is 99.62. So we are well over the budgeted amount. So just for your information, based on the original net to be raised, we're about just shy of 52,000 from 100% of that. There are some additional adjustments, so there could be another 200,000, and then we have a tax sale in April, so hopefully that will generate some additional cash. So we are in a great place.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other present to speak? Okay. I had something for good and welfare, but now I've forgotten it. So unless anyone else has anything for the good of the order, I think we'll move on. Peter?
Move to adjourn.
Wait, can I share that on Monday, the Board of Selectmen will be taking up the discussion of masking in public buildings. So if you're interested in participating or hearing that conversation, I encourage you to come to our meeting.
Okay, excellent. Pete, I think you were doing something there. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was good information, Erica, and now I move to adjourn.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, everyone who is in favor of adjourning, please wave and say aye.
Aye.
Good night,
Aye.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.